You have been doing this since you were a kid, haven't you? You heard a breathtaking piano arrangement or watched a legendary pop artist command a stadium, and your brain immediately hijacked the scene. You inserted yourself right in the center, imagining the sheer power of impressing everyone you know. For a lot of people, this sounds like just a fun, fleeting daydream, a quirky little habit to pass the time. But if you are someone who constantly escapes into these elaborate scenarios, if your mind naturally and almost uncontrollably drifts into these grandiose performances, the second a good song hits your ears, you are actually experiencing something much deeper. You are not just being creative, and you are certainly not just bored. Your beautiful, complicated brain is executing a deeply ingrained, highly sophisticated psychological defense mechanism, and it is protecting you from a reality that your nervous system has deemed completely unbearable. To understand why your brain is playing these highlight reels of your imaginary triumphs, we have to talk about what psychologists refer to as an inner core fragmented sense of self. It sounds like a heavy, intimidating term, but it is actually the key to unlocking why you feel the way you do when the music stops. Let us break down what a healthy, solid sense of self actually looks like. Imagine a person who walks through the world with a quiet, unshakable internal baseline. Their default emotional state whispers, "I am good enough. I am stable. I am strong." If they make a mistake, they do not spiral. If they are ignored at a party, they do not crumble. They inherently believe there is nothing fundamentally wrong with them. They do not need a standing ovation just to justify taking up space in the world. Now, compare that to a fractured or fragmented sense of self. If you are operating with this kind of internal framework, your baseline is drastically different. It is a quiet, persistent hum of panic. The underlying belief is I am not good enough. Something is inherently deeply wrong with me. I am weird. I am a freak. I am completely worthless unless I am proving my worth. For someone with a fractured sense of self, the idea of being loved just for existing is an alien concept. The subconscious mind has written a brutal contract that says the only possible way you will ever receive love, attention, or validation is if you impress them. You have to achieve incredible things. You have to be extraordinary, dazzling, and undeniably spectacular. Because if you are not, you are nothing. This is where the fantasy becomes a matter of psychological survival. When your internal world is built on the belief that you are fundamentally broken, sitting in silence with yourself is excruciating. It is emotionally unbearable to face those painfully held schemas, those deeply entrenched beliefs that you are invisible and unworthy. And you know what word absolutely terrifies a fractured sense of self? Ordinary. Just being an average, everyday person blending into the background. To a healthy ego, being ordinary is fine. It is peaceful, but to you, the concept of being ordinary might make your stomach physically drop. It makes you feel entirely invisible, unimportant, and vulnerable to being abandoned by the tribe. So, what does a brilliant, desperate brain do when the reality of feeling ordinary is too painful to endure? It builds an escape hatch. It constructs a magnificent, impenetrable fortress of fantasy in order to avoid those heavy, suffocating feelings of worthlessness. You have to mentally catapult yourself out of your current reality. You have to imagine yourself being unconditionally great. You have to envision yourself achieving monumental things. You have to imagine stepping up to that microphone and singing that song so perfectly that nobody can ever look down on you again. In the fantasy, you are safe. In the fantasy, you are finally in control. Every cheer from your imaginary crowd acts as a frantic, temporary patch over the cracks in your identity. Your brain is desperately self-soothing, using the dopamine rush of imagined glory to numb the sharp ache of real-world inadequacy. You are not daydreaming because you are an egomaniac who thinks you are better than everyone else. It is actually the exact opposite. You are daydreaming of superiority because you secretly fear you are entirely inferior. It is a pendulum swing. The lower your self-esteem drops, the higher and more grandiose your fantasies have to become to balance the scales. When you imagine directing that award-winning movie or shredding that guitar solo, you are giving your nervous system a brief, intoxicating vacation from the exhausting full-time job of rejecting yourself. It is the only place where you do not have to hustle for your worth. It is the only arena where you are guaranteed to win. And the tragedy is, the moment the song fades out and you pull your headphones off, gravity hits. You are back in your ordinary body and your ordinary life, and the heavy, familiar blanket of inadequacy settles right back over your shoulders. But here is the absolute most important thing you need to hear today. The profound truth that most people go their entire lives without realizing. That fractured sense of self, that unbearable feeling of being broken. It is not actually the truth of who you are. It is the manifestation of deep, unhealed shame. And shame is a very misunderstood concept. We talk about shame like it is just a passing emotion, like sadness or anger. But it is not. Shame is an unconscious, emotionally held belief about your core identity. It produces terrible emotions, sure, but at its root, it is a learned curriculum. You were not born feeling like you had to perform to deserve oxygen. You did not exit the womb believing you were a freak who needed a standing ovation to be worthy of love. Somebody taught you that view about yourself. You picked it up from your environment. Maybe it was a hypercritical parent who only praised you when you brought home perfect grades. Maybe it was an environment where your basic emotional needs were ignored unless you were actively entertaining people or staying perfectly out of the way. Maybe it was relentless criticism that taught you the only way to be safe was to be untouchable. Wherever it came from, you were a child, and your brain did what children's brains do. You took that external rejection, you internalized it, and you claimed it as an absolute fact about yourself. You believed it for a very protective reason. Because for a child, it is much safer to believe you are flawed and need to be better than to realize the people who are supposed to protect you are failing you. You took on the burden of being broken so that your world could make sense. And that brings us to the good news. The incredible, life-altering plot twist to your psychological story. Because that shame is just a learned belief. It means it is not a permanent tattoo on your soul. It is just outdated software running in the background of your mind. It can actually be healed. It can be updated. You can rewire your nervous system to slowly piece that fractured sense of self back together. You can reach a point where your baseline returns to stability, where you can sit on your couch on a random Tuesday, doing absolutely nothing impressive, and still feel an unshakable sense of worth. You do not have to spend the rest of your life performing in the theater of your mind just to escape the pain of your reality. You can learn to tolerate the quiet. You can learn to embrace the ordinary without feeling like you are disappearing. Your fantasies have kept you safe for a very long time, and you can thank your brain for protecting you when you didn't have any other tools. But you are not that helpless kid anymore. You are capable of building a real life that feels so solid, so authentic, and so deeply secure that you no longer need an imaginary audience to validate your existence. If this made you see your inner world completely differently, if you suddenly understand the heavy mechanics behind your favorite daydreams, hit subscribe. We are going to dive much deeper into how to actually update these hidden beliefs. And the next video is going to give you the exact tools you never knew you needed.